Let's see. It takes a second. Does it say we're live on Zoom?
I'm on.
Let me see. Oh, we are live on Facebook. Hey guys, I know we were a few minutes late. We were just doing a little catch up before we came on. And hello. How is everyone? Let's make sure we are sounding and looking good. Beth, just text me if there's any technical difficulties on that side. I see you now. You're good, she says. All right. I love it. So hello, guys. I am here with you with yet another story of hope. I have to first start out and say that I was thinking about that this morning. How honored am I that my girls want to come live and talk to like tens of thousands of people about their fertility story, and they don't mind sharing their real name and their real story. And you know, they're doing it all out of kindness and love and hope for you guys, you know, because they were once in your shoes. And, you know, it just, it's such an honor to me because, you know, it's a simple ask and it's not like we have to pull any charades to get people to come on live, and just that you guys are willing to do this. So it means so much. And Samantha came live with me last year too. And I just, you know, she's got a great story. She's an awesome lady. She's also transformed her career to now support women. Well, I'll let you tell, but so I thought it was, you know, twofold an advantage too. So you could see how she did overcome these fertility challenges and these really bad, I do that, you know, because you guys know how I feel about FSH and AMH, but these really bad numbers where fertility doctors literally wouldn't even take her case. So she defied the odds and got pregnant naturally at 41, gave birth, what'd you say, at 42. And here she is to talk about it now with a toddler and how her life has changed. So Sam, why don't you tell us, Samantha, a bit about your story, and yeah, we'll just let it unfold from there.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. It really is an honor to be able to share the story of hope, because honestly, when I was in your shoes, that I was just looking everywhere for a story of hope. And I was, you know, Googling and just grabbing on. And then when I had found Aimee, it was like the universe answered this prayer, because she was exactly what I needed at the time. And a little backdrop is in 2008, I had a really horrific medical situation that came up that had nothing to do with pregnancy, but it kind of put in the back of my mind that our bodies are intuitive. And if we listen, they're going to tell us things that maybe the medical community doesn't know. So when I was hit very hard, when I was told that having a child wouldn't be possible, of course I mourned and I cried, and I then went into that go mode of, all right, well, I can't have a child, says my conventional OBGYN, but that's not the fertility specialist. So then I went and I called the best fertility clinics in the city. And I spoke to this very bubbly lady on the phone, and she took all my information and she said, well, before we make the appointment, you need to just send us your labs. And I'm like, fine, no problem. Boom, sent them over, called her back. Now, the person that was on the other end of the line was the same woman with just such a different vibe. And she basically was just very stoic. And she said, we won't be making an appointment. We can't make an appointment with you. Your labs are not good enough. And I remember saying to myself, you know, I was kind of caught off guard. And I said, well, what do you mean? Can't I just meet with the doctor? She said, no, he's not going to take you on as a case. Have you thought of adoption? And now keep in mind, this is a stranger over the phone that's just blowing up my idea of what I thought motherhood for me was going to be like. So I was crushed, and I was shut down and by multiple fertility clinics, because I don't have the exact numbers. I'm sure they're in Aimee's files, but my FSH was in the mid to high 20s, and my AMH was almost non-existent at I think it was a 0.01, right? So it just defied all things. So that experience back in 2008, where I had to listen to my body, and that's where I found some spiritual stuff with Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer. I was able to call onto that. And what I did is, instead of just burying my head in the sand and accepting this as it, I said, there has to be another way, right? So Google, I think part of Google, part of universe, led me to Aimee. And I remember I called her and I was able to somehow get a session with you quite quickly. And I needed that. And we spoke, and your teachings were exactly what I needed to hear. They were hope, and it was empowering me to listen to my body. And it was just happenstance that I live out on Long Island in the Hamptons. And at that time, you were coming out east for the summers. And for me, going into the city regularly wasn't going to work with my work schedule, but she was going to be out here. So again, things worked, and we worked together.
Have our back for sure.
Oh yeah, we worked together regularly, and it was part, obviously the fertility work, the acupuncture work, and I really dug into understanding Eastern medicine. I'm somebody that needs to understand what is happening. I did everything that you said. I ordered the liver pills. I made my first batch of bone broth, which is now a regular Sunday thing for me. And I remember posting it. I was just so excited. And I had what I thought was a healthy lifestyle that I just really cultivated more to really create this part of my body that served as a temple. And I remember somebody told me once, if you Google anything, you can find data to support it. So I stopped Googling the negative and I started Googling stories of hope of women getting pregnant naturally in their 40s. And then all of a sudden my Google feed was filling with books and stories of this, and it was just supportive. So it kind of goes to everything that Aimee teaches, and then you, at that time, you came up with your course. And it's hard to have stamina in this. I'm one of those people that comes on like a bull, and I'm very strong. But then if I don't start to see results, I remember I called you, I said, I'm feeling like I need to take a pause. And I took a pause from the one-on-one, but I still wanted to do some of the passive. And that's exactly when you had launched the course. Yeah. And I was in that place, and I don't know if any of you have been there, where I just wanted to be in my bed and kind of sulking a little bit. And I was in my pajamas and I was listening to Aimee. And I was in that, that closed off space where I was protecting myself. And I remember just listening to the course, and I was getting pieces that I needed that kind of gave me that resurgence of energy again to listen, to my body. And I remember it was really, really hard. That's an understatement of everything that you're going through. So I think my biggest takeaway is really just listen to what comes up for you, because I think there's always that reason. And if you feel like taking a break or pausing or doing what I did, right, where I was more just like receiving the information as opposed to being an active participant. I didn't, at that time you were back in the city and I wasn't making the trips into the city, but I was benefiting greatly because
because you would tune into office hours or listen to them later, but not really participate per se. Yeah. But and there's a lot of girls in the course like that too, where they're like silently stalking the page and like listening to everything and taking in the course and still really benefiting from the community, even as someone who's not overly interactive. And, I would see you, your name pop up if I was on the lives, or like I knew, or she would email me a question. So I knew she was like in the course and doing the work. And, but yeah, I mean, from my perspective too, like you were incredible at all, like the tangible stuff. Like it was like, this is the diet, these are the supplements. Like she had her routine down and it was solid, and it was like, it is perfect, because and then it was the emotional piece that was really, the work. And like half the time when you would come in for acupuncture too, we would just like talk about Abraham or Gabby Bernstein or Wayne Dyer, right? Louis Kay. We would just have these like deeper conversations. And it was the mindset piece that, I felt like, was the final shift, right?
Yeah.
Say.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting, because what your audience doesn't know is in a past life, my previous career was as a psychologist, right? So I had the training. I understood the power of mind, but for me, I was missing it. It was like I was so cognitively in tune with how to deliver that I wasn't able to receive it for myself. So for me, having to go spiritual was really important. And then for me, grace, giving myself grace and giving myself permission, which wasn't something that I ever did in my life before, because it was like if I wasn't achieving, and listen, this may sound callous, but I always thought that I wasn't achieving because I wasn't able to achieve the pregnancy. So I saw it as like a failure.
Yeah.
I saw it as my body failing, me failing. You know, Billy would be as supportive as he could be, but he didn't know that I would have like, I don't know, a stomach cramp, or I would have a headache, and I was Googling, is this early sign of pregnancy? And then the amount of pregnancy tests that I was taking, he had no idea how many I had thrown away. And it was this like compulsion to access something. And it was only when I stopped, and I stopped that kind of compulsive behavior to achieve something, that I walked away from this as that it wasn't just a tangible experience, but it was a spiritual experience. And my son, Shep, when he arrived, he was exactly who we were supposed to have at the time. And if Billy and I had met at a different time or had another child, it wouldn't be who we have now. So I have the ability to say that on the other side. And I'm not trying to say this in a way that hurts or anything, but I really do believe that there is more timing to this than we even know. And
I remember one thing you said last year that I still quote you on, that you said, you know, you came to this place where you were like, okay, I'm going to have to make peace with both directions in my life, like a childless, you know, marriage and what that could look like, and make peace with that, and then make peace with if we do this, you know, and that happened obviously before she conceived naturally, you know, but that you got to this place of, and that was during the time where we really weren't communicating much at all anymore. Like I would hear from you here and there. Yep. You know, and what's interesting too is like your periods were like a shorter cycle, and they would kind of do this funky thing, like jump around a little bit. And I always found that interesting, like in retrospect, that never changed that much. Like you were still ovulating and menstruating regularly, but like we never achieved like a perfect cycle. And we, you know, so I say that because I want you guys to understand that we're not robots, and that this isn't always about like achieving this perfection with your body, that it's, you know, doing the right things to support your body. You're still menstruating and ovulating, even if that's wonky month to month, and that you're working on that emotional piece. But I just always remember so if you could talk about that, like that.
Oh yeah.
That
thank you so much for reminding me. I came to that point where we were about a year in, and I was in that kind of that place of really having to turn inward, because I was feeling like perhaps this wasn't going to happen. And honestly, I don't know if you are all doing this, but I was tracking everything right on my phone. And like I said, I was taking almost, without exaggeration, I'm ashamed to say it, but I was probably taking 3 to 4 pregnancy tests a week. Like didn't matter where I was in the cycle. And I was Googling when pregnancy tests are wrong, and it was really wreaking havoc. Billy and I had gone to Paris for my birthday, and I remember saying to myself, wouldn't it be magical to get pregnant in Paris? And when we didn't, that was just the icing on the cake. And I just needed to pause. And that's when I stepped back, and I said to myself, I have to align with the 2 possible outcomes and what that life would look like with or without. Now, obviously, I didn't know what having a child was going to feel like, but I had an idea of what our lives would look like. And it took me a long time, but I honestly made peace with both. And I was okay with both. I wasn't thrilled, but my heart wasn't in pain as much as it was in that Paris trip. And the kicker in the Paris trip is I got my period on day 2. Yeah. So it was just really it was painful. And I don't think necessarily our husbands or partners understand that for me, getting my period was a death for me every time. And I used to tell Billy, I'm going through mourning. I need a day where you just leave me alone. And I needed to just go in to be able to come out. But when we did get pregnant, it was everything, it didn't, it like what you just said. I had found a doctor who used to do IVF, but then stepped away from it because he said he really believed, and I'm blanking on his name.
Sammy David.
Yes. I loved him. And he said, you know, he figured out that I was ovulating on these weird, like day 20, 21, right? Weird. And because he would take all these tests, and my son was conceived on day 20.
Yeah.
And like you said, I had very random periods. So I think working with you and then getting that information from Dr. David also helped me relinquish the idea of control and timelines, because I had always had it in my head, day 14 is when I'm going to need to conceive. And then he said, your body's not operating the way that everybody else's necessarily is. So we got to let that go. So I was just getting all these things saying to release these ideals of what I had. And when we got pregnant, I took 4 pregnancy tests thinking this is not possible. And I literally,
well, first she messaged me because remember your period, she like had spotting or was weird, and you were afraid you were in perimenopause. Like, is this perimenopause?
Oh yeah, the doctors were telling me, yeah.
She was like freaking like, and her email, and I was like, you know, have you taken a pregnancy test? And you were kind of like annoyed with me for asking, because you were just like, Aimee, you know. And then she did, and so then tell that part. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm laughing at it now, but at the time I was annoyed at that, because it was like so because every doctor was saying I was in early menopause, which, as a side note, I went into early menopause this January, and my doctor said to me, you know, your eggs have done their job and you're done. And like, what a callous thing to say or whatever. And you're in early menopause, and you know, here's these drugs and everything. And of course I didn't fill the script. And Billy said, oh, he doesn't know who he's dealing with. He said, how long before you're going to reverse it? I said, I don't know, give me 3 months, and I'm getting my period now as of April. Yes. So that's just a side note again about the power of our body. But when we found out, I remember I took the pregnancy test and I threw it at Billy, very angry. And I said, you read this, because I had been so conditioned that these pregnancy tests were a negative thing, that when it showed me what I wanted to show it, I didn't have the joy. I had anger, like, how dare this thing make me feel like that? And he looked at it, and he was obviously much calmer than I was. He goes, Samantha, it's positive. I said, no, it's not. So I called the doctor, and of course the doctor's office, they're so frustrating. They said, you know, well, we can't see you until you're like 8 to 12 weeks. And then and I said, you don't understand. I am supposed to be in menopause. I took 4 pregnancy tests. I will come down and stalk you. I need to see the doctor today. So they got me an appointment that afternoon. And even the doctor said, you know, these tests, you know, like we said, you're in early menopause. It wasn't even perimenopause. They were saying I was in full-blown menopause. And he said, you know, he gave me the test. He said, I'm going to do a sonogram. And I swear he turned white. And I didn't know a sonogram. I didn't know what I was listening for. I hear the swishing, you know, of the water. And he said, and he started to, like, he looked shocked, and he looked at me, and he looked at Billy, and he said, do you know what that is? And I said, what, is this have something else wrong? Like, what else is wrong? He goes, Samantha, it's a heartbeat. So from
already like 6 or 7 weeks, weren't you, at that point?
I was 8. Yeah. So it was really lucky, again, the universe, right? Like,
yeah, I thought you were so protected because of how anxious that she could, you know, where you were at. I felt like that was such a protection that she didn't even go through those early tests. Like, literally, she was just 8 weeks pregnant, like, just like that. Like, it was just like, boom, and here you are, 8 weeks, because felt like that would have been, you know, it just was, I don't know, it was such a blessing. I thought, I remember
it was. And again, I don't think I would have survived not seeing a doctor and not having it validated. And the fact that everything they had a cancellation. And then he said, I don't normally do this. And he did the sonogram, and like, we had proof. And at the time, Mark Hyman, some of you may know who that is. He was my doctor, and I had a phone conference set up for him at 4:00 that afternoon. And when I had seen him that January, I had gotten notified that I was pregnant in May. When I saw him in January, he said, why are you here? I said, well, I just want to be my healthiest self, and I'm, you know, older, and I want to get, you know, pregnant, but I know I'm older. And he goes, no, just stop it. He said, one of my best friends just got pregnant at 43. I don't want to hear that. So let's move on. So when I called him for our appointment, I was laughing and he was like, "What are you laughing about?" I said, "I don't even know how to tell you this, but I'm pregnant." So I suffered from Epstein-Barr, and we were doing a lot of support around the Epstein-Barr, and he said, "All right, we need to change your entire protocol." So I had a lot of prenatal advice from Mark Hyman, which was great. So, and that was all on the same day. So it was like you said, it was just everything kind of fell into place. And just so that you're aware, anybody that is in their 40s, like I was, the doctor said to me that I had the healthiest pregnancy in the doctor's office, and I was the oldest one in the doctor's office that was pregnant. So I was like, yes, like, see,
It
all this,
works.
yeah, like all the stuff that we do, and my son is healthy, and it's like, so, and he even, my doctor said, I talk about you at medical conventions because you're a medical anomaly. And I keep saying, I'm not an anomaly. I'm somebody that's nurturing their body, but it's so hard for that, like, cognitive dissonance for them to accept that. Yeah. So the whole thing was amazing.
And then tell us about too, like, because there was a career transformation that happened through all of this as well. So
Yeah.
share that with everyone.
Yeah, before I got pregnant, I was always interested in the mind-body connection, and I had the mind part. Well, I thought I did, but being the psychologist, but I was missing something, and I know I had gone through that traumatic experience in 2008, where I ended up with cardiac issues, and I had a very routine surgery that I ended up bleeding out from, and I ended up bedridden for over 9 months, unable to walk, unable to see, the whole thing. And I was able to kind of reverse that, or reverse my cardiac condition. I reversed all of it. How I really can't put into framework, but even before Shep was born, I wanted to learn more about the power of wellness coaching and health coaching, and the power of our bodies, and listening and tuning into the frequency. So I did all the training, and I actually got my certification. I had Shep next to me at 2 months of age, and I took the final exam. They let me do it on a Zoom call. It was 3 hours, which is, it was really intense, but I did it. So I left my brick and mortar career, and I now have an online company helping women tap into their wellness, and realizing that, it's a gift that we overlook. And I think that so many people think it's very difficult, and it's because it's our beliefs. And once we work on our beliefs, the wellness piece kind of unfolds easily. And I think I really think that the hardships I had were journeys for me to go on. And I think we all have a calling, and if it wasn't for everything I went through, I wouldn't be able to have this incredible career. And it's incredible. The whole thing is amazing. Yeah. I'm grateful. I'm really grateful.
And it's like, so much of what, I talk about, and what you and I always discuss too, is like, what are you giving birth to? So besides even, trying to conceive this child, but just giving birth to like better health and vitality and this transformation. And that was so awesome to witness as well, from an outsider, right? It was watching you go through this transformation and becoming a mother, but at the same time realizing, okay, my career path's going to change as well. And this is really where I am to be of service, because you really did defy the odds, right? And defy kind of what the medical community says. And you never gave up, and you were tenacious. And, it's such a gift to be able to share that with others, and to inspire others too. But I feel like I see that all the time, where you see these transformations, not just physically, and not just, the manifestation of a child, but in our lives, in our relationships, in our careers. And that's so much of, I believe, the work, because when you really start to nourish yourself and provide for yourself in the way that you are worthy of, or that you deserve, that's when you see all of these shifts really happen. And
oh yeah, and your body, and I think what I had a hard time with during this process, and you were such an incredible sounding board, Aimee, was I was very resentful and angry with my body, and that is not a space that can cultivate the growth of
there's no creation there.
Yeah,
there's zero creation there. And so, like I saw on the Facebook, I know people are relating, and thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you so much for this motivation. What an amazing journey. One woman wrote, I don't know why these comments hide themselves on me, but you know, giving yourself grace. And I feel like that's the biggest thing is like, you know, so much of the work is not just, oh, okay, I'm going to do the diet and I'm going to take the supplements. I'm just going to check the boxes and like, sure, I'll meditate every day and I'll do the castor oil packs or whatever. But where are you working on you? Where are you forgiving yourself, forgiving your body? And really actually even first of all, being honest with the fact that you're fucking pissed at your body and you hate it right now. Like, you know, my friend Nat posted this morning, like infertility has changed me and I hate it, you know, and it's like, let's first just be honest with that. And then that's when we can really start to change and shift. And, you know, to just be able to say that. And, you know, that I feel like you saying that and just holding space for that just helps so many women heal, because that is the truth. Like we're in a constant battle. Every time you bleed when you don't think you're supposed to, or you ovulate when you don't think you're supposed to, or you get a negative pregnancy test, is just another reason to go to town on yourself and your body and all the ways in which it's failing you.
Yeah. And I found like one of the things that I have learned, and that might be the psychologist in me or just the intuition that I have, is the worst thing you can do when you're angry is push it down and ignore it. What you want to do is let it rise up, accept it, embrace it, because then you give it permission to move on.
It has to transform.
Yeah.
We see that in Chinese medicine too. Like the more you push down, it becomes like a compost pile and it begins to smolder. And then the heat burns you up from the inside. And that is not a breeding ground for fertility or for creation or for babies or anything like that. So it is. And a lot of the spiritual work, you know, same. It's, and I talk about it in Body Belief too. You got to acknowledge first, then begin to shift the thought. But if you don't acknowledge it, you know, and it's really just that thing of you just have to be really honest with yourself. And that's, you know, for me and the way I teach and all the programs, to me, it's like, that's the piece that I really get into with my girls and enjoy. I love that part. I love that conversation. And that's missing from a lot of the conversations. There are a lot of things you can do to manage estrogen dominance or to boost progesterone or to improve egg quality. And we address all those too, but we have to talk about the emotional component. And until we do, it will not shift. And, you know, it's just like still why I still always quote you, you know, to this day, of like, what you did was you made this peace, you know, with yourself, with your body, with your life. And then isn't it amazing? Then poof, here comes the baby. Do you know what I mean? Like she was prepared, her body was prepared, and she was doing her broth and her liver and all her stuff. Absolutely. And I remember when you saw Hyman, like he made some adjustments, but he was really into the way your diet was and all those things. And I loved that because it made me feel good. I was like, all right, we're doing the right stuff.
Oh yeah. And he was right on the same page with you with the folate and everything. And you know, the one thing that I would say, because I know we're running low on time, is, you know, I also had Billy do everything. So I overhauled our home, and I overhauled the water we drank, and I overhauled the products he used, because even though he was tested and he was fine, I just thought, well, we can just always improve it. We can always make it better. You know,
and that is huge too. I've had so many questions this week of like, what about sperm health? What about this? Like, it's more, I have male factor. And it's like, this course, you can just take it all and just 100%. Make it the house. The whole house transforms. That's how we do it. I mean, my husband can sneak his degree deodorant when he needs to, and his Crest toothpaste, and that's fine. You know, I'm like, whatever, but his food and, you know, and everything, you know, I manage that. And, you know, we have to make water, as he says, because our Berkey filter, and, you know, and I'm like, I don't care. That's how it works in this house. And, and you'll thank me for it in 40 years, or, you know what I mean? And the health of your child is an expression of that. So, you know, just do it. But you will transform their health as well when you take on, and even the mindset stuff, because when you work on you, the people around you begin to shift. It's just how it happens. It's just the energy and the frequency completely shifts in you, and your interaction in the world shifts, and the people around you shift. And so to know that, you know, even if your partner isn't 100% diving in with you, that all of these changes will impact them.
Yeah, the periphery for sure. And the course really, for anybody, you know, on the fence or thinking about it, is such a game changer, because I'm one of those people who I need to have resources. I need to have these things. And even if you're like somebody that maybe won't be engaged in the group so much, but you want the resources to follow along when you need it. See, I'm a big believer of, sometimes it can hit you at midnight, it can hit you in the middle of the day, where all of a sudden you have this aching desire to learn more about A, B, or C. And when it comes to fertility, Aimee's course covers all of it, and you'll just have it, and you'll just have access to it, and it's so helpful.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so I have another student who's going to join me like right now. So
Okay. Okay.
Sam, so why don't you, for anybody, because I feel like there's a lot of girls that are like resonating with you so much, just give us your website, a little promo, because you're growing
Yeah,
such a
the website is being relaunched. It'll be ready next week, but
Okay.
it's so it's my last name. I'll hop into the messaging, but it's
Yeah, do that.
it's drhayatakis.com, and the website's relaunching next week with a little
But
different.
even your Instagram, I love your Instagram post. What's your handle on Instagram?
At Dr. Hayatakis.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's HIOTAKIS.
Yeah, I'll hop into the message.
Yeah, hop in and do that, because she is great to follow, and yeah, and I just you know, I love the work you're doing. It's so great, sweetie. So
thank you so much for having me. I send you all a lot of love.
Thank you, love. Okay,
You.
I'll talk to you very soon. Okay, bye. And then I'll be on with you guys in like 3 seconds with Maria. Okay, bye, my love.
Bye.